Well, Ryan Belknap, HR Director, and I have with me Mark Siemens, who is our representative with Real Benefit Solutions that I work with for our county life insurance for our full-time employees. And what brought us here is the situation where we found out that after we switched from LifeMap to US Able for the life insurance for our employees, we were contacted by some prior employees who had made the option to port life insurance. They reached out and let us know that they received this letter, that their benefit was going to be dropped. And this was a surprise to me, to you, to our auditing department, and I believe is also a surprise to Mark. And reached out to Mark and have let him know about concerns we have with this. We don't want this happening, and asked him to come today to help explain the situation, one, and two, to explain what solutions to the problem that he's been working on so we can help these employees who've been affected. So with that introduction, I would like to turn the time over to Mark to explain those two things.
And I would turn the time over to you to ask whatever questions, or do you want me to explain some? Well, I think your questions would probably.
Well, I can just tell you that I'm as unhappy as all our employees are. And I know we've had a long-term working relationship here, but it's going to be very short if we don't get these things taken care of. That's where we're at right now. I have employees out there that are sending me letters, that they're getting letters saying that they're canceled after they've already paid their premiums, and they haven't had any refunds come back to them. Their spouses are still employees on a few of them.
Yeah.
So why would they be dropped?
Yeah.
And then their children haven't been dropped, but their spouses have been dropped. This is really screwed up, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I would concur completely. As far, there are several issues in all those things that are truly separate issues. But the long and short of it is the ported coverage is, as far as the industry, maybe it would be helpful just to give you an idea of how the industry, the life insurance industry generally handles these kinds of things. Pretty much ported coverage is something that is really now in existence with any company's life insurance policies that you would potentially go with. But how they treat them is still an individual company process and procedure. And there's kind of two ways that they do that. Because with any insurance product that any company sells, they have to keep records and have financials and have pools that relate to those pieces of business. Now, larger companies, what they do when on ported coverage, and again, ported coverage is if a person has coverage and they separate employment for whatever reason, then they're going to lose that eligibility as an employee. Ported coverage is just a benefit offering that allows them to continue to take that as term insurance. Another option is converting it to a permanent policy, which very few take because that's a quite a bit more expensive route to take. Well, as far as the ported coverage, larger companies have a tendency to have their own pool with its own financials for ported coverage. And when if the base policy that coverage ported from were to go away for any reason, that ported coverage continues because it's in its own pool. The smaller the company, the less likely that's going to be a big enough pool to be manageable, and so they will port coverage and it's kind of connected with the base policy. And that's been the case with LifeMap. Now, we found out, so what the situation is, just to reiterate, the switch from LifeMap to US Able was something that was not an option because LifeMap is going away. What the situation was there is US Able Life is the ancillary lines company for about 4 or 5 blues organizations in the East and the Midwest. And LifeMap was the ancillary company for the Cambia Group, which owns Regents Blue Shield, Blue Cross of Oregon, Washington, and Utah, and Regents Blue Shield of Idaho. And so LifeMap was their company, and so they sell individual just life insurance. You don't have to have their health insurance, but that's what the situation was. Well, Cambia and this other group have had a relationship of some sort that I don't even know about or understand. But the decision was made in 2021 that the Cambia Group, in exchange for 17%, this is my understanding of it all, for 17% ownership in US Able, would basically do away with LifeMap, and they were just combining. So it wasn't a merger, but there was some things changed. So essentially, LifeMap was going away, and US Able was just facilitating, basically taking over that business.
And that was in 2021?
2021 was when that deal was cut, is my understanding. And in 2022 is when they announced to us, okay, LifeMap's going to be going away, however, this is why, and this is how we're planning to do it. As groups renew, we'll basically come in and just roll that business, but it was truly a contract change. Now, our agency has probably been through at least 6 or 7 of these transitions prior to you. And there hasn't been a single issue like this come up. But that doesn't necessarily surprise me because Bannock County is a little different. You're larger than a lot of the groups that we have had with LifeMap. And you have the component of law enforcement where people can retire in their 50s and things like that, and are more likely to be in a situation where they might want to port coverage. So you, as an organization, have more of it happening than the normal situation. Even though porting and converting is a nice feature to have, the actual utilization of it is really almost non-existent in most situations for whatever reason. But for you it was a little higher, and so this was the first time it ever came up.
But not all of those people that took the coverage, took the portability, were law enforcement.
Oh, true. That's true. But why it didn't come up in any of our past conversions to US Able, I have no idea. But it was one of the issues I did not even think about it at all. I am a little disappointed in a person that we deal with at US Able now, who was with LifeMap before, because, oh yeah, we talked about that with all the agents and this and that. There's no way I had a conversation with anybody, or this would have come up and it would have been addressed ahead of time. Now, my initial desire was to shop you guys when this all happened, but I don't know if you recall, but back in August I had a health situation hit me kind of suddenly, and it literally put me out for almost a month. And it was right when we would have been doing that. And I think when we did get together to talk about the short-term disability situation, the comment was made, this is a little late, isn't it? Well, that's why it was late, is because I had that it was a perfect storm. I apologize, but I don't know how you apologize for something like that. It just happened. And it certainly was nobody's fault other than mine. But anyhow, So where are we now? So that's the history, and that's the reasoning, is because they are a smaller company, and that's how they do their ported coverage. It's part of the base contract. When that base contract terminates, it went away, that coverage.
But my understanding is just like you just said, that LifeMap was taken over by US Label. That's what we was told. Nothing's gonna change. It's the same company, that's what we were told. That isn't the truth.
We were told they were merging, that was it.
Well, and my understanding now of what happened is better than it was then.
Other than-
I didn't know some of the aspects of this. And if anybody's at fault, it would be me.
So what are we gonna do to help these people?
Okay, that's where we're at today. As far as, I haven't said anything to LifeMap, but personally, my personal feeling is, if they want to, they can fix this. Because the relationship between the two companies is such that I'm convinced if they want to fix this, they can. Now, whether they certainly don't want to, or they would have figured out a way to do it before. But I didn't want to go to them and make any threats or anything like that until you give me authorization to go down a particular road. But what I would suggest is that we go back to them now and say, hey, this is a problem. You find a way to reinstate that and switch that ported coverage back to you, to US Able, or we're shopping. Now, whether I can make it happen, I don't know. I don't know. They have no legal reason, or there's nothing legally that I think we can do to force them to do it. But this is a very desirable piece of business, I can tell you that. Because when it comes to voluntary life insurance and stuff like that, companies, when we originally did this, we got 85% participation in the voluntary life, and it is normal to be at 30 to 40% participation. So at 75%, I'm sure we've probably, or 85%, I'm sure we've backed off that somewhat. But I would wager you're still in the 70s somewhere. So it's a very desirable piece of business. I've already talked with different companies. I'm still waiting to find out if there are other companies that would be willing to accept those ported people. I have had one that has come back and said, I'm sorry, we won't take those people back, but we'd love to quote the business. But I'm hoping that I can go out and find some companies that will step forward and say, yeah, here's the quote on the piece of business, and we'll take those people back. Now, that's the leverage that I think we can use to go back to US Able and say, this is not acceptable. You either make this happen, or we're going to shop, and you are going to lose the business. Because the same thing is true going forward. Okay, if it happened once, can it happen again? And there are plenty of companies that do not treat ported coverage the way that they do. Now, this would have happened in some form regardless, because of the fact that LifeMap is going away.
Well,
But
LifeMap's still sending out invoices. So that was another question I had. They're still sending out invoices, so they're still active.
And I've had a question into them, and I don't have an answer on that. That I just don't know what's going on there, because they certainly shouldn't. And LifeMap is still in existence today, because they're slowly ramping down as groups renew. They're making this transition. So it's something that would have happened eventually, but it certainly could have happened in a better way than it happened, to be
But
sure.
with more information and knowing that this was going to happen, we probably wouldn't be with US Able.
Yeah, yeah.
we have that choice.
Yeah, absolutely. However, whether we could have found another company that would have accepted those, because accepting ported coverage is not a normal thing for any company to do.
But at least we would have had the conversation ahead of time, not
Yes.
something that just shows up,
Yep.
you know, and it actually, the notices showed up 3 weeks after they was denied, or told that they didn't have coverage.
November 1st was
Yeah.
the date of the letters, and they were told they were canceled as of September
Yeah.
30. Why didn't they get prior notice?
Well.
Can you use that for leverage?
Oh, well, we'll use it all for leverage, but I can tell, well, they've already said it to me, because I asked the same question. And they said, well, we don't send those letters out until the policy actually cancels. Yeah, but, no, not in this situation.
What do you mean until the policy
Well,
cancels?
in a
Until
lot-
Bannock County's policy canceled?
Well,
Or-
the old one essentially did. Yeah, the old policy was done away with and the new policy kicked in. It was just a weird situation under which it happened because there was a relationship. Now, had we gone and shopped, for example, had we gone out and you'd have made the decision to go to MetLife or Lincoln Financial or any of those, true. In that situation, your policy wouldn't have canceled until November, and that would have been a reasonable time for them to send those notices out, because until the policy actually cancels, but like.
But I
said-
disagree with you. I disagree with
Well-
you 100%, because my four-wheeler, I had it under Liberty, and they says, I got a notice 2 months before it was gonna cancel, saying, we don't do four-wheelers anymore. So, it's not a common practice.
Yeah.
Because I just experienced it.
Yeah, well, and what I'm saying, in a situation where you would switch, you might not even inform LifeMap until a week before the policy cancels that you're not renewing, and you can do that. Well, if they don't know, they can't send out the notices, and.
But they knew.
But we
I
didn't
know,
cancel,
that's-
they did.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's not an answer in this situation, because they all knew that it was gonna happen, and it's not an issue. But I can tell you, that's what they're gonna say to defend themselves, because they already have said that to me. But I agree with you in that it doesn't fly at all. So, but it's neither here nor there. The question is how do you want me to proceed? Because I will.
I want you to put as much pressure on them, or anyone
Okay.
that you can, to get
Okay.
these people covered.
Okay, so what I would say is the best way to proceed is if we can leave here, and if you have time, we
Yes,
can walk
it's a
down
priority.
and get the reports that we need that will be completely up to date, because the best leverage that I have is you're gonna lose this piece of business if you don't do something.
So what report do you want?
Well, just a complete census and the current enrollment, so that I can go to these companies, these other companies. I'd like to shop you. Like I say, I kind of intended to do it anyway, but because of what happened, we got too late, and we even talked about that, as I recall. And it was just
Kinda
too late to
last
do it,
minute.
so we figured, well, we can do it next year or whenever.
Well,
But,
and I'm sorry that you got sick, but,
yeah. Oh, I know, I know.
but coming up late on our renewal, that was strike one, and this is strike two for all of you.
And I understand that, and this is, you're justified in going forward, and hindsight is 20/20.
Cool.
I can guarantee you, I would do a good number of things different if I
Well,
could go
our
back.
employees don't get the wages that they do outside of the county.
Yeah.
But the benefits that we give our employees is one of the key factors that we're gonna protect,
No, I get
plain
it.
and simple.
And believe me, I'm completely in your ballpark in that respect. I'm not defending anything like this. I apologize the fact that I stumbled on this a little bit in one sense, but as I think about it, it probably would have happened regardless of whether I was sick, because we'd already gone through a number of these, not with one issue, and it was just an oversight on my part. So if that merits you firing me, I have to accept that. I really do. And at the end of the day, I respect whatever decision you make that way. I really do.
Well, you got a little bit of time here to prove yourself.
Okay, well, I will either do that or I will not, and you will take action accordingly. I'm confident of that.
So am I.
So, so if you're okay, then that's what I would do. I'll get the information and I'll start getting quotes, and I'll inform them today that you either find a way to do this or you're going to lose the business. And I think that will be sufficient, but I guess we'll see.
Will you just email me what report you need? If Danny can't provide it, because Danny has all that, right? She just has his
Well,
covered. You want to know?
Yeah, going to her for anything
Okay.
is
No, you're fine.
probably not the better
If-
way to do it, but just complete census with dates of births and addresses and things like that.
Just email me what you need,
Okay,
please.
I
And
will.
then I will give it to payroll and ask them to generate it
Yeah.
and send it to you.
And I've got some, but just to make sure
We
it's
can do it most
completely
current.
up to date.
That works?
Okay, I'll do that. We'll get on it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.